Okay. I need to send you the link and all of that up in case you want to have access to the chat and the potential questions and all of that. Up. I will share it also in Telegram and up. Hello, Pepperoni Face. Hello, man. Hello, everyone. We're gonna wait a couple of minutes for people to join, and then we will start the stream before the market dies in our hands without us even saying a single thing. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Even if that was to happen, do we really have things to complain about after the week we just had? To be honest, we could very much retrace down to the 115, 118. That would remain more than good enough. Can't complain unless you leveraged like a hype at the top. I can understand the pain. Otherwise, you likely have nothing to complain. Okay. Up. That's shared on Twitter. Please discuss H1 200 ml retest on BTC and ETH. We will likely discuss those things. Flipper, hello man. And yeah, hello everyone. Welcome for this stream once again. Today I'm very happy to be joined by a good friend from City. That dates now. I don't exactly remember when we started to discuss, but yeah, I'm joined by Mercury, a trend trader Chad from City. So hello, man. I would say 2019 and 2020 is what I remember. Basically, I remember mostly 2020 when we were all chatting a lot with Dentoshi, Krillin, you and I, and we ended up with very similar systems. I don't know if we can say similar trading approach because I think we have a few differences, especially I would assume in terms of activity. I know that you are a godlike higher time frame traders. I mean, from all the posts you've been sharing over the past year or so, you have pretty much been mostly focused on H4 and daily, right? Oh, can't hear Merc. Okay. Sorry, guys. Sorry. No, that's on me. I know what's the issue. Sorry, lad. I'm a pleb. Try to speak now. Okay, no, it's not. It's I need to do that. Okay, should be better now.
Okay, are we good now?
Yeah.
Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, they can hear you. Sorry, lads.
We good now?
It's me again playing the boomer card with OBS, but that should be good now.
All right, cool.
Yeah, and let me know if it's too loud or if you can hear me and hear you.
Hopefully I'm not too quiet or too loud.
No, it seems fine.
We
Sorry about that.
We have to compensate for Pierre's incompetence.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, OBS is a weird thing. Like I feel like I'm streaming 2 to 3 times per week, and I feel like every time I'm opening OBS again, somehow something has changed and like one of my settings and things like this. But yeah, Merc should read audiobooks. I agree, Merc. You have a very peaceful voice.
I'm waiting for somebody to approach me with a job offer so that I can quit crypto, man.
I mean, from the news we've had today, maybe you should ask Polymarket or Kalshi, apparently.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
I have not followed much what happened. I try to be as little active on CT when we have these kinds of spikes in volatility. But apparently, I have a lot to catch up with in terms of new small drama, I should say. But yeah,
That's the Kalshi and Poly Market Wars.
yeah, exactly. So
You,
again,
you have to
because they
pick a
didn't
side.
hear you, I'm saying it again. Welcome in my stream. Thank you very much for joining me. It's gonna be a pretty casual stream. The idea of the stream is just to discuss our views on the market, discuss our trading system. I want to know more personally how, like, I feel like I don't know how where you come from in terms of what you were doing before and things like this. I've listened to a couple of podcasts of things you participated in. I think one was with Delta, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe I'm
Yeah.
tripping. Yeah,
Yeah. I talk with Delta.
yeah, could lad also. But yeah, all of that. So and basically yeah, discuss the market and those kind of things. If you guys have any question whatsoever, ask them. That's the moment. I'm seeing a question rapidly. I'm going to answer. EP asked, I'm a Haven member. Where can I find the streaming links and schedule? This is not a Haven dedicated stream. This is on my public YouTube channel. But to answer a question, if you're looking for links and timing for the streaming, you have to go in the event tab in the Discord as usual. This one is not linked over there because it's a stream on my own. I've always wanted to welcome Mercury in one of my YouTube videos, so very happy to do so. And yeah, again, hello everyone. So okay, let's just start. Let's just start the stream. Personally, before we do anything, I'm curious to hear your main thought on the market right now. We just had a very strong rally from 109 up to new all-time high, which kind of reminds me of the kind of the spike of activity we've had late June, early July. How do you see the market developing from here? What's your main takes?
My main take is that none of us are bullish enough,
Okay.
honestly. Um, yeah, so I actually put out a post and I said that this October reminds me of October of 2024. And ironically, I went back in my old posts and I even have a post from October 2024 that says, this rally reminds me of October 2023. And so looking back, yeah, it's just, October 2023 and then October 2024. And here we are, October 2025. And it all feels the same to me.
Yeah.
I'm approaching the market the exact same way that I approached in 2023, in 2024. I'm approaching it this exact same way that I approached it in July, which is essentially just maintain exposure, think on a longer term time frame outlook, see the bigger picture, be more passive with my taking profits, and allow things to run,
Yeah.
and look for rotations, right? Because that's really the name of the game. But
Yeah.
in order to have profits to rotate, you need to have profits. So I'm focusing on outperformers. I'm just focused on outperformers, man. I managed to catch a really nice rally on Pump, which I've closed since then, but it was an outperformer for a good portion of the past week. It had a 40% rally or so.
Yeah.
And BNB, I managed to finally capture a position on BNB. It's something I've been watching for months now because it has clearly BNB. If anyone is looking for like relative strength, BNB is the epitome of relative strength. It is the strongest coin in this entire market. It's continuously making new all-time highs.
It's
Right?
nuts.
You want to compare to the stock market. Stocks have continuously been making new all-time highs, and meanwhile, Bitcoin's traded in a range, right? And then people will tell you like, but Bitcoin's the greatest performing asset of the past decade, but it's just because it's higher beta, right? So it's not really stronger in a sense. It's chopping sideways or putting in lower lows at times, and then we have to watch as stocks are making new all-time highs. So BNB has captured my attention. I managed to catch a really nice local trend trade on BNB, and that was just an attempt to overcompensate for my passiveness. As you said, I tend to find myself on a higher time frames, but as a result of that, I'm usually underexposed for like more parabolic, high velocity kind of moves. So
Yeah.
I was able to adapt to lower time frame trend for BNB, and I'm just looking for exposure, man. I think this market is bullish. I think that when you look at the Ethereum chart, it's a great proxy for this entire market, but specifically altcoins as well. And when I look at that Ethereum chart, I see a 4-year range that's broken out of that just got retested beautifully. And now we're reclaiming high time frame trends the same way that we did in July, the same way that we did in April. And when we did it in April, 65% rally. When we did it in July, 100% rally. So we're doing it again. And we just did it. It only happened. We reclaimed 4-hour 200s. I know we're both H4 200s enthusiasts.
Yeah,
Ethereum just reclaimed 4-hour 200s again 3 or 4 days ago, right?
it
And
did.
like
Yeah,
the last time that we got those reclaims, we saw 2 or 3 month long rallies, 65 and 100% respectively. So I don't know. I'm going to approach the same way that I did the last 2 times. And I fully understand that I can see the same input from the market, but get a different output, right?
yeah.
Doesn't necessarily mean like market variance, right? It is what it is. It doesn't always happen the same way every single time. But I think the stars have aligned. So, if I'm wrong, I lose money.
Yeah, worst case scenario, you lose your bet. But yeah, I'm aligned with you. I'm aligned with you. Uh, the main difference, unfortunately for me, is that I have not managed to make the best out of the entire BNB rally. I was too late. I failed to beat H4 trend retests. I didn't play it as well as I wanted, and it's kind of a long time story for me with BNB. I kind of feel like I have not made a genius trade, successful trade on BNB since 2020, basically, and and I think I think I got discouraged into focusing on BNB when because for the majority of 2024 until earlier this year, all I was seeing was this turbo massive year-long consolidation, and it's honestly it's just on me because I had Krillin shouting to me over the past 2 months, 3 months now, focus on BNB and BNB new listings, and this is where CZ is 100% pushing things right now, and no excuses for that. I've been doing great on the rest of the market, but I have completely failed to make the best out of the BNB rally. And as you said, it's been quite the runner. It's been pretty insane to watch. CZ still got it, right?
Yeah. You
CZ
still
still
got
got
motion.
it. And yeah, it's Krillin has been mostly focused on Binance new listings kind of setups. Some have done insane moves. I'm thinking about plays like AIA, Co AI, those kind of things. If I'm not mistaken, one of those did it like a times 18 or something, and like it's the closest we've been. It's the closest we've been, in my opinion, to the 2020 EOB days, if you remember, where
Yeah.
basically long period of consolidation post initial pump, all the main higher time frame moving averages flipping, early signs of trend, come for the given initial impulse, get denied. I have a chart from Krillin over here, but these things kept pumping. This is a 5 days chart. I think it went immensely higher than that. But this is the kind of U pattern that we used to call and share together in the early EOB days. 2020 EOB days when EOB was still relevant before it got buyback by Justin. And yeah, it's been this is where the most fun has been. And personally, I've been lucky enough to have people in the Haven that have very early told me about Aster and to focus on it. The early calls were in the zero point 0.2 region, basically. I did not catch the zero point 0.2, but I was forced to focus on it after that. I'm still long on Aster right now. But yeah, I think for as much as people have been saying of oh crap this cycle has been, I kind of I understand the idea, and I understand why people say that, because it's mostly been very short window of volatility. When we look at Bitcoin, it's mostly been high window of volatility for a couple of months, followed by much longer period of chop fest, gap fills, big impulse, chop fest, gap fills, big impulse, chop fest, gap fills, making it harder to trade maybe, and harder to hold, and more nerve breaking. But I think it's forgetting, and what I'm trying to say is that people also have been saying that there has been no alt season, that it's been shit for alts and things like this. But if we look back, we've got Solana doing like 2 digits to 3 digits again, back to all-time high. Meme coins, I feel like people kind of forgot how hard meme coin pumped at some point. AI coin pumped hard. We have Heath that got a relief rally back to all-time high region. Of course, it's unfortunately still just stuck at the all-time high from last cycle. And you could have expected much more from Eve, considering that BT is times two that. But still, I feel like this market has given us a lot of opportunities if you are willing to kneel in front of the trends, basically, and if you don't fall into too much of a doomerism, which I believe has been easier to fall into this cycle than it was last cycle, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree 100%. And this is something that I talk about frequently with anyone that I talk markets with, because the consensus has been so poor and the sentiment is so poor. And it's like, people are trying to convince me that this is the worst bull market ever, but this is the bull market that changed my life and those around me, right? I used everything that I was able to gather from previous cycles and all that knowledge and experience and the capital that I was able to, expend and then maintain.
Yeah.
And I was able to compound onto that to change everybody's lives, myself and those around me. So you can't tell me that this is the worst bull market ever, because, the person that's willing to make that argument will sit there and say, oh, well, you guys had it easy because, in 2020, Dogecoin went from 0.2 of a penny to 75 cents. And if I were here trading that market when Dogecoin did that, then I would be retired by now. But
Exactly.
You literally watched WIF do that. You watched Bonk do that. You watched Floki get all the way back to its new all-time highs. You watched,
things like
right?
GOAT, things like GOAT, turbo
Yeah,
pumping,
man. Oh my God. People forget how stupid that little spurt was, man. I went on vacation and came back, and my entire timeline was like taken over by AI bots, like tweeting slop. Like it's insane. And their coins went to billions of dollars of valuations in like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Like it was ridiculous. And more than that, you're right. It has been kind of like a perpetual bull market. And I think that a lot of people either misremember or mistalk about the way that the previous bull market cycle kind of happened. And just because it's easier to discuss it that way, the reality is, man, it's always been very rotationary. It's never been a rising tide comes in and lifts every single boat and you're a genius if you throw a blind dart and, you're automatically going to hit a bullseye. It's never been that way. It was, 2020 was DeFi summer. It was called DeFi summer because if you weren't in DeFi, you were not having fun.
Yeah.
Like that's it, right? And then 2021 was NFTs and then memes and then alt layer ones, and that was really it. I mean, there wasn't like too much else outside of that. It was those narratives. It was you either knew how to play relatively strong coins or you drastically underperformed. And it was that much harder to do well in this market. And this is why I just had a conversation with XO, and I was just saying, we were talking about Fartcoin and how Fartcoin had kind of like fallen off of a cliff. I don't know if you want to pull up that chart, but Fartcoin went on a 300, 400% rally and then decided to chop sideways for the next 4 or 5 months as Ethereum got its rotation. As we watched so many coins get these rotations, man. There's been so many opportunities just in the past few months alone, right? Like between Pengu and Pump and just the majors themselves. I'm not even the one trading those coins, and I'll tell you that there's been crazy amounts of opportunity elsewhere, outside of those coins on top of that. So I put out a post that said, yeah, I can see how people think that this is the worst bull market ever if after a 400% rally, you start forcing positions on Fartcoin. Meanwhile, it's chopping sideways in a range for 5 months, and now it's broken down. And then you have BNB that is up 80% in the past 3 months, and people are like, I don't want to trade BNB. It's a boomer coin. It's a major. It's not going to move. Low volatility. Dude, it's up 90%. And it's ripping into price discovery. And then you have Fartcoin that is trading sideways in a 5-month range and then breaks down from the 5-month range and is immediately negative 40% lower within a week after doing that. Like, come on, man. It's at the end of the day, it's always going to come down to skill issue, right? It's the market is always going to be what you make out of it. And I'm not saying that to be funny, but the market is whatever you make out of it. If you want to see it as
100%.
brutal, then it can be brutal. But if you want to see it as a luxury and you want to actually follow some long-term winning philosophies, you want to, like you said, kneel to trends and just kind of submit, you'll probably be just fine.
Yeah. Yeah, and you said it all, and I think it comes down to, I believe, a principle that has remained true ever since I joined crypto, at least, so since 2017. I've always said one thing is that people trade alts from current cycle the way they should have traded alts from the previous cycle, in the sense that in 2000, in last cycle, for example, a lot of people missed DeFi summer, missed NFTs, missed rotation from Soluna Vax, etc., because they were busy and focused on 2017 coins, many of them, and they saw the market reaping in other and new coins instead of being focused on the new ones. And this cycle, a lot of people have been hurt because they've been holding last cycle coins instead of focusing on new coins from this cycle. And I think it also comes down to, and we've seen that a lot over the past couple of weeks, the tribalism that there is in crypto. When I feel like it's something I never understood, it's the capacity of crypto market participants to make the coins that they buy their entire personality. And they're like, oh, I'm a hyper liquid maximalist. I'm not gonna trade Aster. I'm not gonna farm lighter. I don't care. I'm just using that as an example, but brother, you don't have to be all in everything you buy. You can be bullish on one thing and consider that it's bullish for the entire narrative and be long different things. You don't have to become a turbo warrior defender of the coin you longed, basically. And because the rotations have been much shorter this cycle, because they have been short-lived, I feel like combined with this tribalism that has been more true than ever, in my opinion, I can understand why it's been a painful cycle. And I will say it also because it has to be said, but I'm assuming also, my main assumption when people tell me that it's been a painful cycle is that they don't own any Bitcoin. If you've been holding and trading Bitcoin this cycle, as much as it's been very choppy sometimes, as much as it's been brutal in the sense that it gave a 24-hour momentum to retrace it a day after, end of the day, Bitcoin is up times 5 from the bottoms, right? And if not more, actually. So it's a mix of all of that. But to be honest, again, I understand. I understand because it does feel different than other cycle to trade. But if it's trading, right, you adapt or you get rolled over. End of the day. I know
Exactly.
personally that the way I've been trading this cycle in terms of the main setups that have been delivering for me, the main focuses that I've had, I've changed a lot. For example, previous cycles, the most money I've made off of Bitcoin setups, for example, were simply bidding daily trend, retesting daily uptrend, right? Which is a classic, the 101. In this cycle, because of the nature of the pump into consolidation into pump, I've made most of my money not during the trending periods, but during the end consolidation periods. We've basically adapting the system a little bit. And it's true also the same way that I was not trading the market in 2020, 2022, the same way I was in 2009, 17, God bless, because I was even more of an idiot than today, back in the days. But yeah, I feel like it's a mix of all of that. And finally, to conclude on that subject, I also think that a lot of people got one-shotted by the entire um, not necessarily meme coin itself, but content creator coins, pump fund, and all of those things. I kind of feel like a lot of people lost a lot of chips in these trenches, and and I've been trying ever since to capture the next 24-hour pump on chill house or things like this, which in my opinion is the quickest way to have no capital left to play in the market, to be honest. But yeah, if we talk about the cycle you've had, you mentioned BNB and ETH. Has there been any other shitcoins through the cycle that you've been particularly focused on?
You know, it's like you said with the tribalism, the I think the biggest tribalism that we've seen this cycle has been Ethereum versus Solana,
Oh yeah.
especially when Solana was, very hot, and people are making the argument that Ethereum is essentially Yahoo and
Yeah.
Solana is Google,
Yeah.
which I think is a fair argument. But as long
Yeah.
as I go and look at crypto, market cap or CoinGecko or whatever, and I look at the market caps and it goes Bitcoin and then number two is Ethereum and not Solana, I can't agree with that argument. So that has been my reasoning for actually continuously bag holding my Ethereum in my investment ledger.
Yeah.
Actually, Pierre, it was funny. Just before this rally started, like if you go back, it's like, I don't know, April 16th or whatever of 2025. The day before, I posted a tweet that said, my biggest regret this entire cycle is not taking any profit on my Ethereum bags.
Yeah.
And Ethereum was like, I don't know, 1600 or something. And then all of a sudden now it's like almost 5K. And I'm like, all right, never mind. I don't regret it. I'm
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. Classic.
But Solana has actually been my favorite coin to trade throughout this entire cycle. I think I've
Okay.
made the most amount of money throughout this cycle. Like if we're just breaking it down by coin, I think Solana has made me the most amount of money. And that's just because, again, like I wouldn't consider myself an Ethereum maximalist by any means, but I only have Bitcoin and Ethereum in my long-term investment ledgers.
Yeah.
But I'm more than happy to trade Solana. It's been, throughout the cycle, it's just been such a clean chart to trade. My trend trading philosophies have been very well respected on it. Yeah, I mean, it's just been just amazing to trade.
Yeah. True.
But yeah, I'm usually just focusing on whatever coins are hottest. And I usually, when I say that, like I'm not the kind of person that catches Pengu,
Yeah.
right? And I'm happy to admit that. I don't need to catch Pengu in order to feel like I'm outperforming. But yeah, those kinds of rallies usually I'm left in the dust and I just kind of cheer from the sideline.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's something that I give you a lot of credit for is like, I swear, man, whenever I see like a strong trend, I'm like, I bet you Pierre is in this somehow, some way.
Well,
I bet you he caught this trade.
to be honest, it's been less true over time this cycle. It was something that was very very true last cycle for me, and I was pretty much all over. Like last cycle was to me a masterclass of rotation, at least on the Solunavax stream. But it's been less true this cycle. I've been personally, this is the first cycle I'm making a vast majority of my money off of Bitcoin alone instead of shitcoins compared to the previous two cycles. And I mean, it's explicable with the chart itself, of course, but I also think it comes down to starting this cycle with a vastly different capital that I had at the beginning of 2020, a different approach, different responsibilities. But yeah, I've been much more of a Bitcoin trader than a shitcoin trader this cycle, to be honest. But yeah, like in the sense that, for example, you mentioned Pengu, I was never early to this kind of trades. I was fairly decent at capturing continuation on these coins, and particularly with the experience from last cycle to exit at good times. Because if there is something that has remained true this cycle from last cycle is that whenever we have a period of time and a window of time where the market trends are narrative trends, the moment the lower time frame trends stop developing, you can back off. You can come back a couple of months later when things have reset and gaps have reduced. And this is something that has remained true this cycle, whether it's on Bitcoin or shitcoins. If there is one thing that has stick from the last two cycles I've seen, it's that. It's the beauty of the lower time frame trends to capture local tops and local bottoms. But yeah, it's been less true for me. It's something that I've discussed a lot over the past few months. Is that yeah, I've been mostly trading BTC, and I became much more of a Bitcoin trader than a shitcoin trader compared to last cycles. I found Bitcoin infinitely easier for me to read and position in, mostly maybe because of conviction and things like this, but yeah, I have not been early in the trenches. I have not been early on the AI coins. I've still managed to make some good chunk of it, but I have not been particularly precursor of the trend like I could have been in the last cycles, for example. But I do think that this comes down to the more cycle you do, maybe the less you are early to new trends, maybe you can. And I also, the last thing I think about that is that if you have a bigger capital, and I think you pretty much mentioned it, like you don't necessarily need to be that early anymore in the trends and still manage to make a good chunk of money off of the trend, even if it's already established, even if it's reaching a potential look at top and things like this, compared to eagerly I was last cycle to build capital basically. And I think it's been a big difference for me. But yeah, it's been a very different cycle for me, but it's been very, very interesting. It's been very interesting. Let's see if we have a question. I've seen a message from Xenox that said got fucked by Trump also. Yeah, Trump coin one shotted us at the beginning of of last semester basically. With the Trump coin, it's been quite. I kind of feel like it kind of broke the momentum that the entire market had. It was the combination of the Trump coin and the fact that the entire Bitcoin reserve news was either front run, either very priced in, and people were much easier. It was much easier for people to be disappointed than excited by the news itself. But yeah,
Yeah.
got fucked by Trump and two
I
times actually.
I have to expose myself here. Well, expose and clout claim. Expose and clout claim at the same time. I actually thought Trump was going to be a catalyst to spark an even greater rally. I thought it was going to be something like
Me too.
Pepe,
Me too. Yeah.
where I watched Pepe get created and eat up a lot of mind share, and all of a sudden, like 2 months later, we were, doing on-chain hamster racing.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is probably the same thing, more or less. With that said, I was totally fucking wrong. I couldn't have been more wrong. But I did catch a 10x on Trump, and it was a high conviction. You know the MNGR tweet, five
Yeah.
times a year, there's free money on the floor.
Free
I
money to
looked
pick
at
up on the floor.
just pick it up and do nothing and outperformance. And I was thinking about that tweet. And I said, man, it is so funny that all of crypto Twitter loves to talk about that particular post. But now there's this president, the US president's coin just got created 2 hours ago from when, I got the news. And I'm looking at it and it's $7 billion market cap or whatever it was. And I'm like, everyone on my timeline is seething and coping and saying like they hate him and whatever. I'm like, this is the US president just made a coin. This is the epitome of free money. Like it doesn't get more free money than this. So I just dumped like everything that I had on chain. I just dumped it. All of my Phantom wallets, I consolidated all of them and just market bought. And dude, it was crazy. I think I saw it when it was $5 billion market cap, and 15 minutes went by, and I had to market buy $7 billion market cap. And I
Yeah.
woke up the next day, and we were trading at $60 billion market cap, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
So.
and the thing with Trump also is that we've had so many fake coins like weeks and months before these moments that you could feel the moment the tweet was out that there was an hesitation. Like, is it true or not? And I remember once again in the Haven when the news came out, all the chat was going pretty nuts. And I can't remember exactly which member said that, but one member said, okay, you might treat this as a classical trade, except your invalidation is information in the sense that you put one error in the trade right now, it's a act tweet, you lose one error. It's a true coin. You likely wake up tomorrow to a times 20 and you bag a 20R basically. And yeah, it's what led me to buy some also with dust on Phantom. Unfortunately, not as much as I didn't have a lot of money on Solana. But I do think that more than the Trump coin itself, it's the Melania coin that really fucked the momentum because it felt like, man, this is too soon.
Yeah.
This is too soon to disperse the attention that you're trying to gather off of that launch, and you're already dispersing too much of the momentum you might have, basically.
Yeah, that's what showed the true intentions. I mean, obviously everyone knew that. I hope nobody's naive enough to think that, Trump or any political figure actually really cares about us. But yeah, that was definitely what put the nail in the coffin for sure.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. We have another question from Mint Minutes, Pierre, but I think it's kind of applying to both of us. Can you explain your system favorite setups, and maybe Merck can add his thoughts on it? As I said, personally, this cycle, my main favorite setups as someone that has been trading BTC a lot has been outside of the classical trend following setups, has been beating the downside down part of EMA compression. What I refer to EMA compression is post trend when we have wide gaps between 100, 200, 300 MA. I treat the break of 100 MA as a strong signal of gap fills, and then my end goal is to either manage to capture the move back to 300 MA, either just beat around 300 MA and pray basically, which is something that I was hoping for after the recent breakdown, but it never came down to daily 300 MA. To me, it's been the main part of my setups, and it's something that we've been focusing on plenty of the time frame. H4 was a fantastic time frame for these kind of setups. Early August delivered a very interesting one. We can see similar structure, strong trend starts to crack, 100 MA gives in, gap fills all the way to 300 MA, gives a new leg up. So to me, it's been that. What you need to understand is that the way I'm seeing my system is that it's split in three parts. That the system that the market tends to repeat. It's EMA compressions, with last year being the perfect example of that strong trend. EMA compression that leads to trend, doesn't have to be continuation, can very well be reversal. So far this cycle, it's been only continuation. Trend breaks, gap fills, EMA compression, trends, and I try to adapt the way I play depending on the three parts of the system we are of the cycle we are in basically. While I believe you have a much more trend-based approach in the sense that we have reclaimed H4 200 MA / daily trend, this is the moment you want to allocate, right?
I'm sorry. I was focused. I was drawing up. I was drawing up a chart.
I was saying that you have
you
a
repeat
much
the
more
question?
daily. I was saying that you are the much more. Basically, the moment you are the most active in the market is when you have your daily trend reclaim / H4 200 MA, right?
Primarily, yes.
Yeah.
So I'm actually sending you an example. This is what I was doing, why I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, perfect.
I don't know if you need the link, but I sent you an image, if that works.
Should be good. Maybe the quality is not good. If you can send me the TV link, that should be better.
Okay. Yeah, I'll send you a link.
Perfect.
But this is actually an example that counter argues. I'm not necessarily so interested in continuation in a sense, but if you're asking me like what is my bread and butter setup, it's these kinds of trades. Especially this is what sticks out to me a lot, is high time frame trend reclaims along with range deviations.
Okay.
Just because I love confluence, so if I can argue the same exact argument and bullish, upside, whatever, from 7 different perspectives, then that just adds that much more conviction. So even though it's only like a 5-hour trade or so, it's a high conviction setup because it's my bread and butter. Not only are we above 4-hour 200s, which have represented a negative 60% downtrend over the past 4 months for Solana in that example, but as we're reclaiming that trend, we're also getting back inside of a 10-month range.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that we go from range lows into mid-range into range highs. And when I contextualize that on a greater time frame, I'm looking at 200 daily moving averages and how at the time Solana is below them. So if we come up into them, I have to label that as a bearish retest. So really, the extent to that trade is I'm looking for range lows, mid-range, range highs, and when we get to range highs, we have 200 daily moving averages as confluence to that resistance level. And still, I would consider that a banger trade setup. Like that is an amazing trade for me. Primarily, that's really what I would find to be like high conviction kind of things.
Yeah.
Other than that, just simple like confluence in the form of, like SR flips in addition to a high time frame trend retest. That's going to be high conviction for me. Doge breaking out of 200 dailies for only the third time in the past 2 years. That was high conviction for me. That's a trade I'm currently in.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
the sweet confluence of key horizontal level plus trend reclaim, basically giving any kind of invalidation to your trade, the additional push of confluence. Like if we stick to the daily to the H4 setup you shared on Solana, basically on this one, on your entry, if this fails to flip support, you have the confluence of incapacity to reclaim a trend that's been very strong since 220, plus a support that fails to flip support once again after being a key horizontal level basically for a year and more
yes,
on Solana.
exactly. Exactly. So,
Making the invalidations extremely straightforward as much as the target. To me, this is clearly a A+ setup. Like that's usually what I call them. When you have a strong enough confidence that you know that your monkey brain won't be able to argue if it gets invalidated, basically. And
so
that's clean.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Super clean.
Yeah.
No, 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 it's
Funnily enough, the BNB trade that I'm currently in is a variation of this exact same setup, but there's bonus points for the BNB trade because in addition to the trend reclaim and a local range, it's not much, but it's all we have for BNB because it's in price discovery. In addition to both of those things, there's also a bit of market structure that I can hide my stop below. Whereas the Solana example that I just gave you, my stop loss is kind of a bit more arbitrary. It's only really playing into 2/3 of my system
yeah,
because I use my moving averages, I use my gray boxes as support and resistance, and I use market structure. And market structure is actually the main, it's the foundation to my system. It sets the foundation for everything else on top of it. But yeah, so in that Solana example, I didn't have any market structure to really hide behind because if I was using the technical structure, then all of a sudden the RR is pretty shit.
yeah,
But on BNB, I have a clear, H1, I think you would call it, market structure low
yeah,
with support retest with local trend reclaim. And then when I contextualize it, the context for BNB chart is incredibly easy because it's in price discovery. It
yeah.
doesn't get easier than that. The H4 for BNB, I'm sending you another chart.
And it's the
The,
comfiest position you can be because right now,
yeah, so
basically, the invalidation for the rest of the position is whenever the trend breaks,
exactly.
unless you have an event particularly that makes you de-risk, like some sort of a blow-up stop or whatever. But
Yeah.
until
So I
once you're in
just
that position, you're golden basically.
Exactly. So I just sent you the H4 for BNB,
Yeah,
and when you contextualize it, like if I'm getting a local trend reclaim, then in hindsight, what that tells me is my 4-hour 200 amaze bids probably got front ran, and I'm probably not going to get them because the bottom is already in, because I'm seeing the snowball start to operate in tandem with the trend again, right? We're gaining momentum back towards the upside again. So it seems to me like we're just going to continue that momentum into price discovery as I thought we were going to do anyways. It's just that in this case, I'm not going to be along for the rally. So in order to adapt to that, I need to zoom in to lower time frames
yeah,
and then hopefully find something to execute based off of that. So it's literally the same concept where, in one case I'm using high time frame trend in a 10-month range to target a 45% bearish retest rally.
yeah,
And on BNB, I'm doing the exact same thing, but on the hourly chart, I'm targeting price discovery.
yeah.
So it's the same concept though, right? It's the same kind of like system. It's all the same principles. Everything's the same.
Yeah, it's the same idea. It's the same idea. It's very clean. It's very clean. This is yeah, to me this is basically the kind of setup that I'm gonna be chasing when we are in the second part of my 3-part cycle. So when we are in the trendy process. And it's actually a very good, it's very interesting what you said, the fact that you have your trend reclaim on H4 and you dive into H1 to look for entries and for the continuation of that local strength. And I think it's very interesting and important because we discussed a lot about how recent moves we've had, or at least moves we've had this cycle, were short-lived or at least happening in short windows of time. And I feel like this cycle more than ever, or at least more than I can remember. Maybe that was already the case back in the days, but I was maybe focused on other things. But I feel like this cycle, and even on Bitcoin, it's been a lot. The moves have mainly happened off of lower time frame trends development, and you have your signal of the daily. Like Bitcoin recently, the main signal to be looking for risk was the reclaim of the 114K region ish, which basically been the equivalent of the $900 we can see on the $980 we can see on the H1 Bitcoin Binance chart you shared, which is deviation below but horizontal pivot reclaimed, and you have market structure, as you said, to play with. But then if you actually want to make some bucks off of the rally, you likely have to zoom in and look for the lower time frame trends developing, basically. And
Yeah.
you cannot be too passive. You have to use your higher time frame signal to look for risk and then chase entries on lower time frame to actually make some of that. And it's been very, very true this cycle. But yeah, it's A plus setup. To me, I call that A plus setup because, as I said, you have the confluence of very clean horizontal level, trend reclaim, a deviation below for context, and I call this A plus setup because these are the setups that to me are the easier to execute, and not that are easy to execute, but to me easier to execute because I know that with such a strong confluence for my invalidation, I will not be able to discuss the invalidation if slash when it was to be hit, basically. And it might sound dumb, but if I feel like this, I would assume that I'm not the only one and that many market participants have had these struggles. But personally, one of the main reasons I ended up with such system and these kind of rules and these kind of focuses is because I realized that I was very often fighting my invalidations and always finding an excuse for the setup I was in to be still valid despite the invalidation being it, basically. And because I was using a lot of what if instead of focusing on most often.
Mhm.
And when I have the confluence of an horizontal level that is that clean plus trend reclaim that is that clean, I just can't argue with the invalidation. And this is something I've been discussing a lot this cycle with members in the Haven, like the importance to trust your invalidation, stick to them, and replace what if by most often. Yeah, but what if I just got wicked? Yes, but what if this is a local bottom? Well, personally, what I found very useful to work on that has been in my journaling, leave a column empty after a setup was exited, whether it was take profits or stop loss, and come back to it a few days after. If you come back to the setup a few days after and it ends up that your invalidation was just a week out and it reversed into unfolding the setup and you realize it happens a lot, that means you have something to work on. And at least you know that you have something to fix. But if you come back to these setups a few days later and you realize that most often than not, your invalidation was good and that it ended up dying further or whatever, then it's going to build confidence in yourself, in your invalidations, and you are not going to give back a couple of more air buy setups because you're fighting your invalidation. And whenever you're going to get stopped out, you're going to take your -1 air and you're going to move on instead of doing the very usual mistakes of over trading your invalidations and letting emotions take over. One of the very good example I have of that lately from recent trading has been a ETH trade I took. I still have it in my chart somewhere. Where is it? Okay, this one. This is a setup I took in early September. And we've got target 1, target 2 was front run by 60 cents. That sucks. But basically, when I come back to this setup a day after, I'm very happy with the invalidation. That at the moment, it sucked to have been wicked out and to have been taken out, especially after target 2 being front run. But seeing the way it kept dying after my invalidation builds confidence in the fact that if I'm ever taking a similar setup, I will have in mind that I can trust my invalidation. And worst case scenario, I was wrong and I have to chase again. But if it prevents me from doing these kind of mistakes, I can trust my invalidation, and it's a strong thing to be able to do. I've been with my work in the Haven over the few years. I have been confronted to a lot of relatively new traders and or confirmed traders, but who are repeating mistakes. And one of the main mistakes I've seen repeating through people has been that, yes, but what if? Remove the what if of your trading and try to replace it by most often. And yeah, I just wanted to do this small ranting, but
No,
I
it's a
feel like
good
it's
point.
important.
It is important. Replace what if with even if.
Yeah,
Even
even
if
if. That's a
even
big
if
one.
it's the local bottom, then I'll buy the reclaim. I can trade a different coin. There will be a different rotation somewhere else. And even if I miss that reclaim setup, there's gonna be a pullback at some point. Like even if, man,
Yeah, yeah,
you can always figure it out. And that's I think that I forgot who it was, but somebody had a great post, and they said something along the lines of FOMO is really just like lack of confidence in yourself to ever find a similar opportunity.
yeah,
And I think that says a lot, right? Like it really is. It's a lack of like self confidence. But I think there's a lot to be said about the clarity in terms of invalidation, like what you said. And a lot of the times, like after a multi-month rally, I'll still continuously be bull posting, just haphazardly, just like giga bullish the same way that I have been for 3 months. And people go to me and say, "Hey, Mercury, why are you still bullish after 100% 3 month Ethereum rally?" And I say because I've been bullish. Because and it's like the way that I can paint this out is like, don't you think it looks like a top? And I'm like, yeah, actually, it does look like a top. So why aren't you calling it a top? Because the other 18 tops that looked like tops to me, and I
yeah,
probably would have called those tops too. But here's the thing, like you and I actually on that Ethereum trade, we had the same exact invalidation.
yeah,
That's where I cut my position from 2600 or whatever from 2 months prior. That's exactly where I cut it. But that brings so much clarity and so much peace to me to just ride the trend and don't overcomplicate things, because then when that trade is finally invalid, I can start making arguments that I have not even taken into consideration for
yeah,
2.5 months. And it's that much easier for me to just be able to like get rid of my Ethereum position. I knew it wasn't going to last forever. It wasn't, I'm going to throw it into my investment, ledger or whatever. It was just a spot swing trade. And I'm just looking to, make some good money. And that's what I did. And it's time to cut now. And then, in the next week or two, Ethereum goes negative 15% lower.
yeah,
That feels good. And then I have a question. I can go, hey, do I want to buy this 4 year range high retest, or would I rather wait for a local trend to be reclaimed? Or would I rather wait for the high time frame trend to reclaimed? Or do I think that there's a better trade than Ethereum and I can go, make better money with a cleaner chart elsewhere?
yeah,
Those are the options that I'm met with all of a sudden, as opposed to, oh shit, do I need to cut my Ethereum position now that we're at the 4 year range highs? Because what if it deviates back inside?
yeah,
What if it's just like the price action from 2021 where, it's a fluke, it's a fake out, it's a bull trap, and then we go all the way back down to 2K? What if, right? I don't need to do that. I don't have to consider those options. I've allowed myself to be met with a higher tier of quality in terms of the options that I'm constantly allowing myself to play into. It's never like, doubt, it's never fear, it's never uncertainty. So, yeah, there's a lot to be said about the better you can justify your entry is oftentimes the better that you can justify your invalidation as well, right? The
yeah,
same reason why you want to be in a trade is the exact same reason as to why you want to be out of it. And a big thing for me in trend trading and what speaks out to me is I'm trading 4 hour 200s plus support plus market structure on Ethereum back in July at 2500. I'm still trading 4 hour 200s support and market structure on Ethereum, but now at
400s.
4,200.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's the same exact reasoning. Like if you're going to ask me what is my thesis on the chart, You don't know if I'm talking about July or if I'm talking about September. You have no clue. You don't know if I'm talking about $2,500 Ethereum or 4,200. You have no idea because I'm arguing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And then so what that does is it creates dynamic kind of relationship with the market where when I am right, I can sleep peacefully knowing that, it's impossible for the market to take away from me. My hard work is set in stone. I am going to win. It's just a matter of, am I going to win, 70% by the time I close this trade because we lose the 4-hour 200s tomorrow? Or do I get to see, new all-time highs in Ethereum into 6K before that happens, right? But I still get to argue the same thing. And that brings me a lot of peace because actually in my innate nature, I'm pretty risk averse, which is ironic to be in markets and not really care for risk. So I find a lot of comfort in that. I find peace in being able to just kind of ride the same trend until something breaks, and then finally when it does break, it's that much clearer to me that something is wrong and something's broken and I can do something about it.
Until it doesn't work. Until it doesn't
Yeah.
work. Yeah. And you said like a lot of very interesting things. And I believe, to me, what resonates the most is the fact that you're saying that you're basically taking the setups you took off of H4 200, you may reclaim, for example, in June or whatever, but 2K higher. Because that's what I'm trying to say when I'm saying that my system is basically 3 steps in the market, repeating and trying to spot early when or where we are in the cycle and try to adapt the way I'm playing depending on at what part of the cycle we are. If we are in the trending phase, in the gap fill phase, or whatever. But yeah, it's very interesting. And also, I've seen a post earlier today. I can't remember from who it was on Twitter, from someone that was saying that he used to think that trading was to be risk management all the time and to be able to sleep whether you are in a position or not. Only for him to realize a few years later that, to him at least, trading was actually being the most risked on when he felt like he had to be risk on, even if it's uncomfortable at first, because that was the only way for him to ride trends. And I found it very interesting because I kind of feel like this is the kind of thought process that led us, you, Krillin, Dentoshi, me, from the 2021, 2020, and 2019 days to build these kind of systems, because you realize that this is a trendy market on a higher time frame enough, I should say. Obviously, if is not very much the best chart on higher time frame to discuss that. BTC is a much better chart for this. But yeah, and finally, I will add one thing to what you said, is that when you exit your ETH trade that you took in April because it lost the daily trend, basically. I think something that's very important to keep in mind, something that I learned through the years, and that I was very, at the beginning of being focused on trends, one of the things that I was trying to fix was that I realized I was very good at buying, much less at selling. Hence the struggles with trusting invalidations that I discussed before. And by trading focused on trends through the years, the market forced me to accept that I will almost never sell at the peak of my UPNL. Like, I will almost always take a shortcut by the moment the trend I'm focused on is lost. The only counterexample I have of that is last cycle top, where basically daily trend started to crack on BT. And basically that was the top, like, and it consolidated long enough that the daily trend was at 62k and the top was at 68 basically. But through the years I've learned that I need to accept that, okay, I have a position running on something that I've been riding the trend for the last 45%. I need to accept that it might be the peak of my UPNL, and I need not to fight it. And I need to accept that if I'm focused on riding the trend and it helped me to keep the position running longer than initially expected, I also have to accept that if/when the trend breaks, well, that's it. That was a peak in UPNL, but that doesn't mean I should not be happy with the position basically. The same
Yeah.
way a lot of people all often discuss that you need to forget your all-time high folio because it's not the reality. It's at one point in time UPNL you were at this amount of money, but it's not real. That's not something you should hold on to too much, and that's not something you should consider as a failure if you're not at your folio all-time high anymore after a market retrace or whatever, basically. And I feel like being focused on trends helps a lot over that because, as we discussed, until it doesn't work anymore, and when it doesn't work anymore, you likely have enough justifications to be happy with your setup anyway. So yeah, very interesting, very interesting. Okay, well, I think you have a question from August in the chat asking, Merck, if you don't mind, could you share your strategy for entering a position, laddering, limit, swaps? So it's a bit of a detailed question. I think we kind of discussed that already, but maybe if you want to add some things, maybe on what can be triggers for you and the way you execute.
As far as actual trade execution, I typically am kind of the lazy person that just sets one order and walks away, and I
Okay.
just I just let that be my entry. As far as exiting, typically the way I think about taking profit is I attribute like a certain amount of merit to different resistance levels. So if I'm targeting a daily resistance level, it's very bulky, it's the bottom side of an 8 month range, I might want to take a lot more profit at that region, or maybe even cut the trade entirely, depending on what the thesis is, as opposed to if I'm targeting like an hourly resistance or, a 2 week range high, then I might be more willing to just let the trade run. And if we get to that resistance, I might not take any profit, depending on what the context for that trade is. Or I might take 10, 20% off, right? Scraping off of the trade. And that is just my attempt at trying to make sure that the times that matter, the times that count, I'm actually seeing enough reward to
Yeah.
overcompensate for all the deviations, for all the flukes, for all the bull traps, for all the BS that we have to endure in this market, especially as trend traders. The reality is there have been, I don't know if you realize this, there have been 7 rallies in the past 3 to 4 years that have actually mattered.
Yeah.
7. If you miss one of those, right, Pierre, you and I, our entire system is trend trading. If we miss one of those trend rallies, we are drastically underperforming. We're not even meeting our par. That's the
Yeah.
standard. You have to be capturing those kinds of movements. If you are not, you are setting yourself, you're doing yourself a disservice long term.
Yeah.
You're allowing for the variance to plague you that much harder, right? To a much more significant degree, as opposed to saying, "Oh, I got chopped up 5 times in a row. That really sucks, but it's okay because I'm still up 30 R in the past, month, whatever." As opposed to saying that, now it's, "Oh, well, now I'm back to break even, and now I'm tilted, and now this and that, and now the next time I see this exact same trigger, I'm not going to want to take it, and then that's going to create a domino effect." It's very few and far between, infrequent kinds of opportunities, right?
Yeah.
But the reality of crypto is that it's always been that way. I remember in 2023, after we had rallied 100% off the lows, and I had to watch. I think it was Andrew Kang and a bunch of other people start putting out polls and whatever, and saying which market's more brutal, 2019 or 2023. And I'm like, the market is up. Well, why are we saying that the market is brutal? And then people go, well, because if you missed these 8 days in the market so far this year, then you essentially missed out on the entire bull market rally. But the market has always been that way. You can go look at, there are articles that were written for the stock market in like the 80s, I'm sorry, in like the 2000s, and they go all the way back to the 80s, and they found that if you miss 2 weeks out of the entire year for the stock market, you miss out on more than half of the gains for the entire year.
Yeah,
And the
yeah,
same thing
that's
for Bitcoin.
half of the gains. I don't think it's been very true anymore at least since 2020, considering the way markets have been surging, because it's been much more up only. But I
Yeah,
remember
it's been more of
what
a
you
stagnant grind. Yeah.
I've read. I think
Um,
I've read the same thing that you that was saying that half of the gains to make off of indexes, at least in stock markets, can be realized in a 2 weeks time frame. Basically, I don't know if it's
yeah.
been that true anymore. The face of SPX would disagree, but at the same time, maybe it's actually true when you think about it.
But for Bitcoin, it's still true.
It
10 days
is.
out of the year
It
for
is.
for if you go all the way back to, I think it's like 2013 or 2014, something ridiculous. 10 days out of the year count for more than half the gains on Bitcoin for the entire year.
Yeah.
So, that's normal, man. It's normal. It's 2080. It's the Pareto principle. You are here for the very infrequent amounts of times where the market decides to just go absolutely berserk, and that only occurs rarely. So when it does occur, you have to make sure that you have the right approach. So the way that I structure and the way that I ladder in terms of taking profit is very much, I keep that in mind. That is at the forefront of my conscious at always when I'm trading. But as far as just entering positions, I'm not a magician. And listen, I'm not trading with $10, but I don't move the market.
Yeah.
I don't move the market. I don't need to sit there and ladder my bids and ask for fills and whatever. If I place a bid, it's not going to create a buy wall, and I'm not going to create a sell wall either. And I know that this market is vast. I'm not an egotistical, right? Piece of shit. I know my place. I know my place.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I'm not moving Bitcoin, man. I'm not moving Ethereum. I'm not moving BNB. I have zero impact on the market in the grand scheme of things. So I place one limit order, and that's always worked for me. Or it doesn't. I get front ran, and then like on BNB, I got front ran by literally 1%
Yeah.
on my 4-hour 200 MA's order. That has nothing to do with my bid resting there, let me say, right? BNB is a major coin, but I just got front ran and only had one bid to get filled. So I had to adapt. I had to buy the H1 reclaim instead of the 4-hour retest. So that's what I did. We got to that level. I set my bid, and then I got filled, and here we are.
Yeah, for me, the only justification I could have to spread bids or spread limit orders to exit is simply to be sure that I've got some field. But I'm the same as you, obviously. Like, I don't trade size that can move market or that can be impactful to anyone watching all the blogs or whatever other tools. Like, I'm a small player in a big market. But in terms of execution, I've realized that at most often more for my take profits than for my entries, that I need to spread my orders more than I used to do. I still have this. We already discussed it, but I still have this. This is probably the best example I have over the past few weeks, with that target to front run by 60 cents on ETH before being a turbo local top, basically. And I had all the spreads for the target one. I did not for the target two, and I paid it the price. But beside that, it's not just
Yeah,
it's not justified by limitations in my size. It's more to be sure to have things filled more than anything, basically.
let me ask you a question. What do you do in that situation? When you get front ran on your TP and you start to see price reverse against you, what's the backup plan?
In this exact example, I've unfortunately did nothing, and I've actually worked on a educational video for the Aven on this setup particularly, because one of the main thing that I'm discussing in my video as things that I should have done better is to be
Mm.
more proactive in paying myself when I spot the early signs of weakness. Even in that particular context, even more because I got front run. But in any cases, um, I should have been more proactive in paying myself at two times. The first one was obviously when we got near my target and I didn't get filled, but also after when we started to see H4 trend being disrespected, while the entire thesis of being long was H4 trend defended above H4 100 MA. And I had
Mm.
basically three opportunities to be more proactive to pay myself. The first one was here, obviously. The second one was early signs of weakness, which was H1 trend being broken. And the third one was the one that should have been more than enough for me to take more profits, and it was the break of H4 trend. So to me, this is actually the perfect example of something I did wrong and I should do better, which is do not to be too static in the way I've made the setup initially, and be more proactive at securing profits when the market shows me that I should do so. So this is what I think I should have done, mostly because of the thesis itself of being long off of H4 trend outside of H4 above H4 one of the day. If I'm in a situation where I'm riding a more established trend, in the sense that something that has been defending a trend more often, and let's for example assume that I had a long running on E from lower off of daily trend, and my target 2 is missed here, until daily trend would be lost, I would not consider securing more profits manually. Basically, I would only do so on clear signs of breaking the trend. But in that case of a lower time frame trend being disrespected, that should have been enough. But basically, that's my main takeaway, is that I was not proactive enough for like, again, it's a trend based trade, and instead of sticking to the trend being respected or not to remain in the position, I basically stayed static off of the initial setup that I had in mind. And because of that, I secured 1/3 of the setup on target 1, only to be basically netting a 0 profit on being stopped after. So yeah, this is what I should have done, in my opinion, being more proactive at being myself.
Yeah, so I have the same approach because a lot of the times when you are right, and you're right to an extreme degree, like if you buy a high time frame trend, we might be up 80%, and the difference between current price and the high time frame trend even just getting retested as support might be negative 30%.
Yeah.
So what do you do in the meantime? There's a lot of white space there where you're kind of just allowing the market to take control. So what do you do? And yeah, the answer for me has always been you zoom in, you find a low time frame trend that has been respected throughout that rally, and you use that as a form of like micromanaging the position.
Yeah.
But the way something that I really appreciate about you, Pierre, is you have a lot of trading experience. You've been doing this for a long time, using the exact same system that you are using today, and you're still a student to this market.
Very much.
You still junior, you still journal, you still take notes, you still think about what you did wrong, what you did right, and that's always been something that I appreciate about you.
Yeah. So thank you, but basically what I'm saying every time I'm discussing that, my answer is I don't have the choice, in the sense that I am not, and I've never said that I was. I've always claimed to. I've always presented myself as the main represent of the mid curve trader. Like you have very talented traders on CT and everywhere in the markets. You have people who can trade very much off of their instinct, and they are extremely good at it. They sense the market in a way which I think you are a part of, basically. I do believe. While me, at the opposite, I overthink. I have a much more of a grinder approach, and I need to be doing these things. Otherwise, I get absolutely bullied. And every time I deviate from this small discipline, I get absolutely butchered from the market. And it happens. I always have relapses, as I call them. But yeah, I have no choices. I am a mid curve trader, grinding, and if I don't, I will get bullied, 100%. And I will add one thing, because we discussed when looking for lower time frame trends to find something defended when the main trends you've been riding is breaking. I mentioned earlier that I see my system in 3 parts of a cycle repeating: EMA compressions, trend, gap fills. This is what whenever I'm riding a trend, over the time, I've established some early signals and way to approach the markets. And for example, I've had a long running on Bitcoin since last October, last end of the EMA compression, on which, outside of initial take profits, I have not been taking anything off. mostly because I applied the cycle, in the sense that we have a strong daily trend, and at the moment I see early signs of daily trend breaking, that was take profit moment. And ever since I played gap fills to daily 300 MA, to basically compound of the position. And this is not something I used to do last cycle. Last cycle, I was riding a daily trend. The daily trend was breaking. I was exiting fully, waiting for the next daily trend. In this cycle, I've been much more active on Bitcoin, and I've tried to maximize retraces within, after the daily trend, within the weekly trend, to compound basically. And that's what I was saying at the beginning of the stream when I said that I was not trading. I have the same main basis of the system, but I've been trading vastly different setups in the end compared to last cycles, which maybe is why I've also found this cycle very interesting more than painful, because I feel like I've improved a lot trading wise compared to last cycle. I feel like I've learned much more this cycle than I did last cycle, to be honest. But yeah, I also think this is what it is interesting with trend trading, is that you can have a very basic approach that says a couple of imaginary lines, are we above, are we below? But the more you're going to play with the system, the more you're going to find and apply some set of rules that can sometimes be true only for you, depending on how much you can accept of a drawdown post trend, depending on how aggressively you're willing to pay yourself, depending if you're active, if you have what it takes to compound on trend retests, or if you should just let initial position run, don't touch anything until the daily trend breaks, for example. And yeah, I guess to be honest, I guess this is true for any system. Yeah,
Yes, absolutely. Any system that isn't algorithmic. As a discretionary trader, you have to abide by these rules. I mean, you're going to have what looks like chaos to someone else is organization to you.
Yeah, very much. That's well said. That's pretty much that. But yeah, it's very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, well, man, I've kept you 20 more minutes than I was initially supposed to. The market is moving, so
the market is moving.
we're gonna halt the stream here. But again, I wanted to thank you very much for joining me. It's been very interesting conversation. I'm gonna be sharing the link of the video a few times because I feel like we discussed some very interesting things. Thank you very much for joining me. We need to do a part 2 where I'm joining your stream or whatever that can be helpful to you.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. It's a pleasure. And honestly, knowing each other for 6 years now, I can't believe this is the first time we've ever done this.
It's true. It's true. That's what I was actually saying the other day. I was speaking with someone in the and I was saying that it was going to be the actual first call we have together, and we've been interacting together and in many ways taking similar trades for the past 4 years and without never having a single call. So that it's insane that it took us Bitcoin to be at 120K and 5 years passing to do a call together.
All right, part 2 stream at 500K Bitcoin.
Okay, so next week then.
Yeah, sounds good. No, if that happens next week, I won't be here. I'll be retired.
Yeah, very likely. But anyway, thank you very much everyone for joining. You will have the replay of the stream obviously available if you joined late or if you want to listen again. Don't hesitate to go and follow Mercury if you do not already. I assume you already do so, but if you don't, go on @TraderMercury on Twitter and give him a follow. Like I genuinely think you're one of the most under-followed accounts on City, considering the quality of the context you're posting, and 2, the quality of the content other people are posting. So make sure you're following. Mercury. Again, thank you very much for joining. We didn't take a lot of questions. We didn't add a lot of questions either, but I do think it's because it was an interesting chat in itself. So yeah, again, thank you very much, and we will see you all guys on City. Cheers.
Much love, bro.